What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is the beginning of jumping down the rabbit hole of Jethro Tull albums. A lot of them. I'm going to go backwards, start off this one with the 5 that were released in the 90s and on. Then we'll do the 80s. Then we'll tackle the massive 70s. And then the last list, I'll tackle the 260s albums and drop a complete album ranking. But yeah, going to go through this piecemeal just so this video is not really long. But yeah, Jethro Tull, Zappa connection. Eddie Jobson did his time with both Zappa in the 70s for 2 tours. And then he did some time with Jethro Tull in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s. So Eddie Jobson is the connection. Yeah, so we got 5 albums in the 90s and on. Just going to talk through those, rank those. Drop the list on the screen when we're done. But yeah, we'll kick it off with some underwhelming stuff, to be honest with you. That's why I'm going backwards, so we get rid of the stuff now that will end up probably ultimately on the bottom of the list, and then get to the good stuff later. So yeah, all right, let's do it. 5 albums, let's get on with it. My number 5 is this one. Oh, and I'm not doing the Christmas album. Nope, not going near a Christmas album, even though that counts in their official studio release thing. I might review the Christmas album around Christmas when it's appropriate to listen to a Christmas album. But for now, I'm skipping that. That's why there's only 5. All right, on to number 5. Number 5 is Catfish Rising. This came out back in 1991 and is officially their 18th studio album. This is supposedly the 3rd in like their hard rock phase of the 80s and early 90s, though there's really only a handful of what could qualify as hard rock songs, and they're kind of generic and not that heavy. Maybe need to be a little bit grittier. The opening, This Is Not Love, kind of a generic hard rock, of course, with flute added. The second song, Occasional Demons, is kind of hard rock, with a really nice, almost Stones-esque riff in the beginning, flirting with like a Start Me Up vibe. But the production on it, the way the guitar is like there, it just doesn't, they don't lean into the riff. Like they could have bare-boned Occasional Demons a little better and isolated that guitar and put it front and center and just leaned into that riff. You got some interesting hard rock right there, but they kind of oddly go away from that. Yeah, then you have some more typically like Toll type stuff. I think the highlights on this album are like the 2 acoustic numbers that are Rocks on the Road, has sort of a loose folky vibe that's kind of acoustic that I think is one of the better songs on here, though it does have this unnecessary sort of fade out, fade in thing at the end that just makes it a little too long. And then the closing Gold-Tipped Boots, Black Jacket and Tie, nice jaunty, fun and light acoustic number that I think really works. There's a song, Still Loving You Tonight, that has like a bluesy vibe to it, but it's just not raw or bluesy enough. It's just a little too like polished. Doctor to My Disease, which such a, I don't know, 90s hard rock title. Doctor to My Disease, just kind of some generic hard rock. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just not that good. Sleep, oh, that's a bonus track. Yeah, there's some good bonus tracks on here, but yeah, it's just not that good, not that memorable. There's this weird sort of, what is it? Sparrow on the Schoolyard Wall. It's a Dire Straits vibe in some of this, both in the way Anderson is talk singing. He has like a Knopfler effect a lot of times in the 80s, 90s on. Even the music has this sort of late period, just adult rock, Dire Straits vibe that just doesn't do it. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. I thought this was a very pretty forgettable album, other than the 2 sort of acoustic, jauntier tracks. The bluesier parts were better than the hard rock parts. The folkier parts were better than the bluesier parts. And yet they're trying to do something different. It's when they sound like classic Toll, I think is when this works the best. But yeah, my number 5 for this era, Catfish Rising. Number 4 is their 22nd studio album, The Zealot Gene. This came out in 2022. The cover, that cover, as much as I do not like that cover, it sort of promises, it both promises a rawness that is just not here. It's a pretty I mean, it's like when you listen, there's nothing wrong with the production. It's just kind of bland. Nothing really jumps out. Everything is just, I don't know. There's something weird about it. Um, and the cover also shows that it's clearly like an Ian Anderson effort, I think. His singing at this point almost has a Roger Waters type vibe where he's just kind of talking because he can't sing anymore. The songs are just kind of the best part about this and the one that follows this. They've had this album, they've released another one, is there are moments in almost a lot of these songs, like really kind of short proggy intros or little proggy things in the beginning. There's a lot of little nice proggy touches. And musically, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff, but then lyrics, I think he's always kind of okay lyrics, but just the melodies and the songs themselves, like I'm not walking away humming anything or like I gotta go back and listen to that song again. It's just all kind of just forgettable. I think there's a couple really good songs on here that kind of stood out to me. Mine is The Mountain. Had some nice piano flute interaction. There was just kind of this nice piano motif that kind of went through the whole thing. And then some proggy riffs, some nice dynamic action over the course of The Mountain that I thought was pretty good. The Betrayal of Joshua Kind, which is apparently an allegory for Jesus Christ. I think this might be a concept album, but I can't say I paid enough attention to know. It wasn't compelling enough for me to like dive into the concept. But yeah, it feels like there is. That was pretty good. The Betrayal of Joshua Kind, nice bounciness to like the verses, kind of sort of something to engage with. I thought the closing, The Fisherman of Ephesus, was pretty good. Has this very nice sort of Irish storytelling, bouncy groove to it that just really works. Other than that, I thought the acoustic stuff maybe worked better than Anytime It Got Hard. Those little prog pockets are kind of interesting. Sad City Sisters had like an old school Jethro Tull acoustic folk vibe that I thought was pretty good. Shoshana Sleeping had a nice groove to the song, but the melody and just the song itself, apart from what the groove is laying down, just wasn't that memorable. But yeah, it's an album, man. That's all it is. It's not bad, but it's not memorable, and it's not anything I'm going to be scrambling to hear again anytime soon. That's my number 4, the Zealot Gene. I'm not a Jethro Tull zealot where I'm going to say that this is a great album because I can't say it is. So, sorry. All right, on to number 3. Number 3 is their 23rd RokFlote, floaty, whatever. RokFlote with little umlauts, right, over the O's. This came out in 2023. It's their most recent. Kind of is treading the same water, mining the same veins as the Zealot Gene. And like, I think like this album and the Zealot Gene are almost like if you asked AI to make like a Jethro Tull album, right? You type in like, acoustic folk vibes, lots of flute, proggy elements throughout. Like this is an AI version of Jethro Tull. It sounds like Jethro Tull. It's checking off a lot of the Jethro Tull boxes. It doesn't sound bad, but it's not particularly inspired or particularly memorable or particularly like breaking any new creative ground. All the songs on here are about Norse mythology. I think actual people or actual stories from Norse mythology. Some of the lyrics are pretty interesting. There's a couple pretty good songs on here. Hammer on Hammer, you finally get some really, really good guitar energy on that one. That one's pretty good. Trickster and the Mistletoe, great title. That just has an old school like Jethro Tull vibe, a lot of proggy in it. The only problem is, as it is with a lot of these songs, is like musically you might be like engaged in it, but the vocals or the melodies just aren't. They're not bringing the hooks. They're not bringing the energy that these need. But I thought those 2 tracks really kind of stood out. Other than that, there's just there's some good. The Navigators has some good like streamlined rock energy on it. You got some generic sort of flute rock on a lot of these songs. You have this interesting like breathing, talking in both of the beginning as we come in on Veluspo, as we end on Ithavolley. The last song, Ithavolley, is kind of a nice lot of instrumental stuff before you get some like female narration in there that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's just a lot of it's just kind of generic generic flute rock. Little elements of prog that I think are pretty good. But the problem is, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, it's just not coming with the melodies, not coming with the vocal performance, not coming with the actual songs. The Wolf Unchained is kind of a cool song. That and Hammer on Hammer. Wolf Unchained's pretty good, probably the heaviest song on here, right in the middle. Nice, cool groove. But the fact that the Wolf Unchained is the heaviest song on here says more about the album than it does about the heaviness of Wolf Unchained. But yeah, I think it's just got a slightly better than the Zealot. I think slightly more just intriguing throughout, but again, not something I'm walking away like, oh, that song was a banger. But yeah, my number 3, RokFlote. Number 2 is the unfortunately named J-Tull Dot Com. One of the worst set of lyrics so far is on the second song, .com. I'll be yours, yours.com. Yeah, it didn't age too well. I think it's just a little bit more consistent, a more consistent listening experience from start to finish, I think, than the previous two I've talked about. All three of the ones I've talked about. The opening Spiral has a nice guitar riff that kind of just opens up the festivities. A pretty good opener. I think the strongest opener we've had so far. Then you get the unfortunate kind of mid-tempo, gentler .com. AOL, kind of a cool song, some interesting lyrics. A lot of interesting lyrics on here, some like weird psychness throughout some of them. I think Anderson was having fun writing these lyrics. AOL has some nice big prog energy throughout it. That's a pretty good song. You get the Nothing at All, this short little piano, slow ballad, gentler instrumental that goes into this song, Wicked Windows, which is kind of a bigger sounding song. Nice heavy riff and Hump by Numbers. Kind of flirts with the Kinks a little bit, like a little Kinks energy if they had like leaned into the heaviness of it. You get a little like early Kinks in there. Not too bad stuff. Hot Mango Flush. Interesting, weird little song. You got, I think, might be some marimba in there. The vocals, no, but this is where you get some kind of weird psych vibes, some weird lyric vibes. Kind of a cool, almost flirting with like an early King Crimson or some like gentler Dirty Projectors type vibe. Interesting song. I don't know how good it is, but it kind of stands out because it really seems like trying something a little bit different on Hot Mango Flush. There's a Mango Surprise reprise later that is completely unnecessary, but apparently they also thought it was a more interesting song. Got some kind of shredding guitar for a little while in El Nino. Nice heavy riff in the chorus, but not that much memorable of a song. Black Mamba. Any song called Black Mamba needs to be a little bit heavier than this one is, but there is a nice heavy groove in it. Does have this like soft, heavy vibe that's not that bad. The bends is kind of bends like a willow. Nice, cool, proggy middle. Again, nice little pockets of prog throughout this whole thing. And then the Far Alaska, pretty good song. Nice proggy intro, some proggy runs. Some, I think what are good synth sounds in there, or really heavily affected guitars, but a pretty good song. Yeah, this is not a bad album. Like, again, I'm not going to walk away with this going, I have to go back and listen to this album. But I think a lot of the songs are throwing out some musical ideas and some little musical snippets that make this slightly more intriguing than the ones that have already been on this list. So yeah, that would be my number 2, the unfortunately titled J-Tull.com. And my number 1 from this era, I think by far the best of these, would be 1995's Roots to Branches, their 19th studio album. Again, just a much more consistent listen from start to finish. The opening Roots to Branches has this like sort of slow volume build into like this kind of mid-tempo groove. And it opens like an album. I think it kind of draws you in and kind of welcomes you into like this sort of the journey that they're on, getting away from the hard rock. The Catfish Rising was the album preceding this, so they're definitely getting away from that and into definitely a little more proggy, a little more. The second song, Rare and Precious Chain, has a slight sort of Eastern vibe in there that really works. Some nice, cool guitar in there. So they're definitely, I think, the music is just a little more interesting and not as generic as the albums that preceded it and the albums that are going to follow, to be honest. Out of the Noise is probably one of the stronger tracks on here. I think some really nice organ sounds on here, really nice groove, some really good lyrics about just life in general, of a certain man's life. Later on, you have a song called Dangerous Veils. Just starts off with some really, really grooving flute. Like Anderson's coming at it hard with the flute on Dangerous Veils. Just nice song, kind of takes the energy from the previous song, which is Valley, which has this sort of start-stop type intro, a little more like a dramatic type rock song. Pretty good, like a dun type thing, acoustic, but with some nice guitar licks. Don't know what Life in the Valley is about. Interesting lyrics about apparently the people down there don't like the people in the valley and some stuff, and that goes into Dangerous Veils. Pretty good song. The song Wounded, Old, and Treacherous. Nice, really chill opening with just some solo flute, and it kind of builds into this really nice groove. Kind of flirting a little bit musically with like some late era Steely Dan, that kind of vibe. But still a pretty good, some really good guitar on there. It's a little more of a dynamic song. Other than that, you just got some you got some typical Jethro Tull sounding stuff that's not too overly proggy, unfortunately, or not too down any sort of genre rabbit hole, unfortunately, which I think maybe they could do. Stuck in the August Rain, sounds like you're in the rain. Well-titled song. Another Harry's Bars, another one of those that has that Roger Waters sort of talk singing through thing. Like you can't sing as you get older, so you find a way to talk your way through it. Yeah, there are moments in here. I just think from start to finish, this is a little more consistent, a little more exciting, a little more of an album that you want to go back and maybe revisit more often than the other four on the list. I think this one is quite a step up. That would be my number one for the 90s and on era, Roots and Branches. And that's what those 5 look like in typewritten form. Other than maybe a couple albums on the 80s, those are probably going to end up near the bottom of the list anyways. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah. Let me know what you think about these. Let me know if you think they're better than I do. Sell me on these albums, because I'm always interested in liking more music, because I like to like things. But anyways, all right. Thanks for watching. That's all I got for now. We'll be back with the 80s Tull albums in a couple days. Things get a little more exciting for a brief while. Then we hit those awesome 70s. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. And peace. Talk to you later.